So after Liver King got caught with all of his absolute absurdities, and we look at what Liver King stood for, right? Liver King stood for just being over the top, doing insane movements, doing insane things, being as, chiseled as you could possibly be, tanned, and then essentially saying that you have to just eat liver, eat testicles, eat eyeballs, and you're going to get stronger. You're going to be as lean and as shredded as me. And this is something that was happening so much that it was like, if you eat testicles and you're eating spleen and you're eating kidney and you're eating liver, you'll be shredded. But if you don't want to do that, just buy these ancestral supplements, and that will get you over the edge of whatever your problems are, whatever, possible issues you might have, whatever, something is even like Hashimoto's disease. He was claiming that these things would get you over the edge of these autoimmunes, right? And so what happened is, as he got exposed, and what was crazy is everybody was absolutely bought into him. Not everybody, but a lot of people. I had an athlete who was representing the country of Egypt, who is from the United States and was an NCAA All-American, and he was actually believing that the Liver King was real, that the Liver King was clean, that the Liver King wasn't dirty, and he wasn't going about things in the wrong way, that he actually was upholding this ancestral life. And so after the Liver King was ousted, everybody's bullshit meter has been full steam ahead. Everybody has been at this point of like, what is going on that is a gimmick. Shout out Jeff Nippard for calling us out. Everybody has been looking at things in the fitness industry and saying, okay, the big aspect is, if you see somebody who's jacked, if you see someone who's shredded and lean, and they're trying to sell a supplement, or they're trying to stand by their authority, and they're using their authority to thus sell a supplement or a product or a program or a piece of equipment, whatever it might be, that means they're now possibly a charlatan, and we need to be aware of the fact that this could indeed be accurate. And so in my mind, there's this spectrum of that meter, of the bullshit meter, right? You have the Liver King as like the absolute number one individual over here that we all have to be aware of. We all have to recognize, and we all have to recognize, like, guys, let's try to think through how these concepts play with normal people. And then if we go through that spectrum and we start to recognize, where some of those things might align, we might see there's doctors out there. Joel Seedman has a doctorate. I think his is in chiropractor. I could be wrong. He's a doctor of chiropractor, doctor or whatever. I could be wrong with that. He could have a degree from the University of Georgia, now that I'm thinking about that. But he is somebody that maybe, I don't know, maybe he's selling something along those lines. But we have this spectrum. And when we're looking at the instance of what happened with Mike Israetel, and the fact that Mike has gone out and essentially, especially over the last 2 years, from what I've seen, has he possibly silenced or gatekeep some people by telling them they shouldn't be criticizing him because of his PhD? Yeah, he has. Have we seen Mike Israetel say things cringeworthy on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, that he's got a IQ of over 160, which I think ChatGPT just achieved like 3 weeks ago. Like, have we seen that cringeworthiness? Yeah, we saw it. It exists. It's out there. We've seen him on Dr. Peter Attia's podcast talking about, he and Peter Attia were going back and forth, and Attia had asked him, like, how do you know that your testicular function is perfectly fine? And Mike was like, it's going to be fine. It would be perfectly fine. I would be perfectly fine coming off anabolic steroids right now. And Attia sort of just played it off like, I don't know how you would know that's perfectly fine. Things like that, they do bring up red flags, right? They do bring up these question marks where you're like, what? I don't know if you have an IQ of 160 plus. I don't even know if you really need to say those things publicly, that you are smarter than someone else, that you have an IQ that is this high, that I'm better than all these people at whatever, like outwardly saying this. But we also have to recognize we in some cases aren't watching the full length of these podcasts that we're pulling the clips from. In some cases, we're not seeing the context potentially from these different scenarios. With that being said, we can't discount the fact that Mike Israetel's PhD clearly is riddled with inconsistencies, poor recognition of data, poor formatting, poor grammar. It wasn't checked by his advisor. We can see that Mike Israetel's PhD, there was no ingenuity. There was nothing really, truly offering anything to the world of sports performance. These things are accurate. And these things are recognized like this is an issue. And then when we go back, okay, and we revisit that Liver King bullshit meter, we look at it and we say, okay, this is like the worst of the worst is the Liver King. He's shredded. He's big. He's tan. You've got to eat deer nuts to get as shredded as him or buy his supplements. And so you start to think through the same feeling. You have the same feeling. You have the same recognition of that meter because you felt duped by the Liver King. And then you're recognizing that this individual, in the case of Mike Israetel, maybe was using his PhD to tell someone or tell the audience, you should just listen to me because of this PhD, or you should not criticize me because I'm smarter than you. And I've apparently have an IQ test that has shown it's over 160. Therefore, I'm wittier than you. I'm smarter than you. I can berate you. My ideas are better, and I can execute these things better than you. And that is a form of gatekeeping. Now, with all of those things in line, and we're looking at the experience through Liver King, and we're looking at this now through Mike Israetel and what's happened with Mike, my first gut response when I heard about it was, and I actually was texting Dave Tate about this. I was like, no offense, but like he went to East Tennessee State. He's not going to MIT. But then I started to think about, well, Lex Friedman never talks about the fact that his degrees are from Drexel. He actually puts off as though he went to MIT, which is also something that probably a lot of people are recognizing. Man, a lot of these leaders in these spaces tend to bullshit about their where their degrees are from or where their authority may be. I think the thing that I like to bring up with Israetel is, again, he wasn't held accountable in 2013 or 2012 by his supervisor. As somebody that I've met, somebody I've gotten pictures with, somebody that I have liked and enjoyed being in their presence of. He wasn't held accountable, and his dissertation didn't need to be defended to the point of what it probably should have been defended clearly. And this is a consistent problem in exercise science. It's also a consistent problem in the world of higher education, which is also why we're going to see a lot of degrees like exercise science, I believe, in the next 5 to 10 years will just drop off because of the rise of AI and the way that things are going to be implemented. Now, going back to the bullshit meter with Liver King, is that a lot of us will take away and we'll say, and we'll cringe, and we'll think through the Liver King's lens when trying to dial in our observation of Mike Israetel. And I want to challenge everybody a little, because I think there's some big takeaways that we can have here. One, we're on YouTube. Okay, so on YouTube, you can watch what you want to watch, right? Like, you can literally click off what you want to click off. And I know plenty of people who don't like Mike Israetel because they don't like his jokes. They don't like how dirty his jokes are. They don't like his sarcasm. And I know a lot of people that like to watch him because of that. So we do have that freedom to choose. And everybody's going to say that there's some conspiracy with the government and all these things, and that now Mike Israetel is probably part of this. But you don't have to watch him. The second thing is, I like to think through the lens of, is what he put out a net positive, and what he continues to put out, is it a net positive on society? And is the overarching vibe from Mike positive? And does he also have a positive impact on those who interact with him. And I have spoken with people who've interacted with him. I have a friend, Gary, who's close friends with him. I've had experiences there, and I've had people, and I want to compare this case to at least, it's not the case of Matt Wenning when you're lying about, or when you're claiming you're a doctor and you're getting a degree from an institution that's not even accredited. That's just like passed online and it's a total farce. At least we're not looking at that case. We're looking at a case where he does have a PhD. Now, did he use the PhD to gatekeep in the sense of preventing people from arguing with him in some cases on podcasts? Probably, yes. I had seen one where he told he just put off, this person's glutes and hamstrings are getting sore after they run sprints because they're growing, and the individual was like, are they growing or are they just recovering from the stimulation from sprinting? And it was sort of like this weird, awkward transition. But the individual, in my viewpoint, did not argue with him because they just didn't want to bring up no, that's not why their hamstrings and glutes are sore. They're not growing in the sense of bodybuilding and muscular mass. They're literally recovering from the high intensity bouts of sprints. Now, going back to this whole conversation here is that when I'm looking through the lens of Liver King and his pawning of his supplements and those lines, and I'm looking at Mike and his selling of his supplements and his app, I like to think through, is what he's put out and what he continues to put out, is it a net positive on the world in regards to understanding basic nutritional concepts, understanding basic resistance training, getting the general public, reaching a general public audience, getting them to be more active, getting them to be more aware of their decision-making process with nutrition, all while he is open about his anabolic use. He is open about what he does and how he feels about his body. He does convey those things outwardly. He's not hiding any of those aspects. He's not, secretive in that realm. And he's also shown results with other individuals in the bodybuilding world. He seems to be, by all accounts, relatively versed in the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So he has comprehension and understanding of these other aspects. Do I think that there's some underlying issues with maybe how he would say these things that are cringeworthy? Like, I have an IQ that's 160 plus. I don't know if you really need to say that. My brother-in-law worked for NASA and was an electrical engineer who has an IQ of 155. I've never heard somebody actually outwardly say those things. And that's where it's it does become a little cringeworthy. But at the same time, people, we have to recognize, is he saying things or is he putting things out that's net positive or net negative? And when you're looking at his basic information on doing a dumbbell bench press, doing a pull-up or a chin-up, or doing a row or a deadlift, or how to grow, muscle mass through mechanical tension, and how to train, full range of motion versus partial length and partial range of motion, and then going through things like isometrics and breaking these things down in a nuanced manner. I think we have to recognize that in most cases, he's been right way more than he's been wrong. Way more. He's been charismatic, probably way more so than he has been cringeworthy. Are there things to criticize, and are there things that we can take away from the situation? Yes. I think it's important that we don't just dive all in on someone with the fact that they're in a position of authority, but I also think it's important to recognize intelligence or at least in this case, results from his past coaching has been positive, and his interactions with people, by most accounts that I've encountered, have been positive, very positive. And so coming off of this, the biggest quote that I want to throw out there is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't sit here and just say his PhD dissertation's trash, therefore everything he says is trash. That was 12 plus years ago. He's clearly made mistakes. He's clearly done things that he probably wish he would have done a little bit more thoroughly. East Tennessee State probably should do a better job of paying attention to details and knowing the expectations of what it means to have a PhD program. And they should be doing their job as far as an institution is concerned. And if we have those things in line, we can't throw out the fact that he still offers good advice to the normal person. And also his jokes and sarcasm that rub a lot of people the wrong way. And I'm not a huge person with some of his jokes, but I do like his sarcasm at times. I don't have to watch him, but he might reach a bigger audience because he can lower that barrier of entry to convey that information as eloquently as he needs to and as charismatically as he needs to someone who literally just needs to go into the gym and do bodyweight squats and chest press machine exercises and things like that. And they just need to start tracking their nutrition, and they just need to start understanding the basic concepts around nutrition and around caloric intake, and seeing someone like Mike who speaks well, who is freaking jacked, that provides some type of authority for them to then just get moving. And then they enter into this world of fitness. And then when they're in the world of fitness, they can expand and find other people that they find more interesting, more satisfying, or whatever it might be. And then they can get down their niche route of their own personal journey. And so I really do think that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because he is a net positive influencer. And we have to recognize that, yes, there's things in his dissertation that were messed up. Yes, there's things that he does that are annoying, but he puts out thousands of hours of free content that has helped people get their shit together. And he's not walking around with a flamethrower like Liver King. He's not walking around throwing spears and things like Liver King did. So on that spectrum, it's important to have those gauges and to have those red flags pop up. And it's important to run people through those lenses and to be aware of those things and to challenge what you're listening to. That's the concept of critical thinking. Okay. One of the best parts, personally, my degree, I've trained dozens of Olympians. I just had a guy get third at world championships in track and field in the discus throw, who we developed from day one. But the biggest thing that I've learned from my degree in religious studies is to think critically. Okay, to question things, question authority, question what you're consuming, to think critically, and to just take the snapshot of an individual from their PhD dissertation, this is bad, therefore this person is bad, is not thinking critically. And I think that you've got to look through the different points. You have to see what goes out and what doesn't go out. And you have to see what's put out to the world, and then start to see where there's points that you disagree with that you see as cringeworthy, and where there's things that are positive, and then take that step back and really challenge yourself. Are more people positively impacted by an individual, or are more people negatively impacted by an individual? And in this case, in this specific case, I'm going to make the argument that more people are net positively impacted by Mike Israetel than negatively impacted. So that's my take. Hope you guys appreciate that. If you guys want help with your programming, obviously you should just download Peak Strength. Click the first link in the description. Head over to peakstrength.app. Select the program that you want to be in. Once you enter in your email, you're going to get in there and you can select a specific sport, the specific goal that you guys want to train for. If you like content like this, click on this card right here. Hopefully you subscribe to the channel. Until next time, peace.